Hi, my name is Matt Kruzek, and welcome to this webinar on chatbots and the notion of conversation as a service. Now, the goal of this presentation is to inform you about chatbots and chatbot technology, discuss some of the applications of that technology, and just to generally get you thinking about some of the areas in your business in which these concepts might be beneficial. So, it may actually surprise you to know that chatbots have been around for a while now. In fact, I'm sure that everyone on this call has probably used them in one form or another. Now, as the technology has gotten better and better, there's been this natural progression in how people interface with it. Now, that progression can really be boiled down into three stages. Now, in the first stage, we have our bot in its most simplistic form. Now, this is the form I refer to as the text word to number form. This form allows you to send a keyword to a medium to execute an action. So, what does that mean, though? For instance, I'm sure you've all seen these commercials that say, text deal to 12345 in order to get put on our mailing list. That's a great example of a stage one bot, right? It's a single medium, which is usually text messaging, aka SMS, and can only accept a limited amount of keywords, right? So if you were to text foobar to 12345, it wouldn't have any idea what you're talking about. It has to be that word deal. All it knows is that when someone texts the word deal to it, it needs to execute an action. Now, the second, more complex stage came to be because we kept getting more and more mediums for messaging. Right now, instead of just SMS, you had things like AOL Instant Messenger and web-based messengers. Because of this expansion, the technology progressed to the point where we can embed custom messaging like emojis and images into our chats, right? It wasn't just about SMS anymore. There were so many more things that we could do. However, this stage is predominantly more complex because now, instead of having just one account for one medium like SMS, you had to account for multiple mediums and multiple formats. So while you got more options, you also got the added overhead of having to account for all those options. So basically, when an SMS message would come in, the data would come in one form. But when a AOL Instant Messenger message would come in, the data would come in another form. So you had to keep track of all these forms in your backend code and try to figure out which ones went to which medium, and also to keep in mind that if that medium got enhanced in any way, you had to be on top of making sure that that format changed with your back-end procedures. The only thing that remained the same is the fact that it's still keyword based, so your logic is still pretty straightforward in that respect. Now, the third and final stage came to be because of this idea that we want our bots to be more human-like and to be able to understand more than just keywords in a sentence. This stage is the most complex because now not only do you have to account for multiple mediums and custom messaging, but now you have to run everything by a natural language processor in order to figure out what the user wants. All right? That's a lot of power, but along with that power comes a lot of responsibility. So, as you can see, you kind of have this recurring theme here, where as the technology has progressed further and further, you get more and more options, which leads to greater and greater complexity and ultimately a greater cost to maintain. So, with all of that progression, we have to ask ourselves, why now, right? So, we talked about the evolution of chatbots, but why is it that they haven't really been mainstream until now? Well, there's been a lot of hurdles that we've had to overcome in order to get to where we are today. And, why now is really the time to invest in this type of technology. The first and most difficult hurdle was that the technology just wasn't there yet, right? In order for chatbots to be truly effective, they needed to be able to convince us that we were talking to another person and not just a machine. Up until recently, the areas of natural language processing and artificial intelligence, they just weren't mature enough to allow such an interaction to occur. Or they were mature enough, but they were not available on a scale that was consumable by people at, in businesses at this level, right? It was that stuff that being done in a lab, or it was, very hypothetical. And it hadn't really been created to be used in a business-like fashion. But with some of the more recent offerings from Microsoft and Google and IBM, this idea of a more human-like chatbot has passed from the realm of fiction to reality. The next hurdle was that there just wasn't enough areas of the type of technology could be used effectively. So what does that mean? Like, there weren't enough mediums. In the early 2000s, email was the way people communicated. It was the de facto way to communicate with each other. Sure, there were chat applications like AOL Instant Messenger, but they really hadn't gone mainstream yet. I mean, you would see it like people I remember when I was in college, everybody used AOL, but, when I would go back home and talk to my parents about it, they were like, I've never heard of that. I don't use AOL Instant Messenger. So it was this very, very small subset of people that were utilizing these more advanced chat features. But nowadays, chat applications are everywhere, right? From SMS to Facebook, people are saturated with the amount of options they have for communication. I mean, my grandparents are on Facebook, utilizing Facebook Messenger. I mean, we have people of all ages and all walks of life being able to consume this technology. And there's just such a broad audience that with all these mediums comes the opportunity for businesses to reach them all and to be able to get their messages out there easily. However, with this idea of so many mediums comes the question of efficiency, right? And this is what we talked about before. With, 5 or 6 different mediums, and I have to program my back end to be able to deal with all that stuff. How do I create a bot that can easily interface with all these applications without having to maintain separate code bases for each type? Now, up until now, exposing a single piece of bot code across multiple mediums wasn't a trivial exercise. It's only now that bots are becoming more mainstream that people are stopping and saying, well, hey, wait a minute, let's create a standard, right? Let's create a framework around trying to do this type of thing so we don't have to make such a huge investment whenever we want to utilize this technology. So I want to stop for a minute and talk about briefly one of the frameworks that's currently being used by Microsoft to help accomplish just this specific task. And that framework is called the Microsoft Bot Framework. The Microsoft Bot Framework is an SDK for building bots that was introduced at the Microsoft Build Conference in 2016. Now, in a nutshell, it helps to achieve all the tasks I just described with a minimal amount of effort, right? It's open source and can be built on top of either the .NET platform or the Node.js platform, which as a developer I think is a great feature because it really helps to cater to both the Microsoft .NET community and also the growing JavaScript community, right? And as a consultant, I see this very often, right? You have these people who are these staunch Microsoft shops and they only want to be working in C#, they only want to be working in, VB and very much a .NET technology. But then you get this other side of the coin where these people who are more about startups, more about open source, they come from a Java background, they like JavaScript, right? JavaScript is kind of this community code base, right? So what Microsoft has done, and very intelligently, as far as I'm concerned, is they have not limited their framework to just .NET developers, they have expanded it to include JavaScript developers. Now, the coolest part about this framework is that it supports building bots across multiple channels using the same code base. Now, what this means is that when a message comes in from Facebook, it looks the exact same as when it comes in from Slack or when it comes in from SMS, right? You don't get this differentiating of the data. That way, you don't have to worry so much about accounting for different variations, which makes our lives as developers so much easier and makes it so you guys as business developers don't have to foot such a huge bill in order to get this stuff developed, right? It's this idea of this one code base that can service all these different offerings. What that means basically is that if I want to send an image carousel to Slack, it will be the exact same code as the image carousel I want to send to Facebook. So finally, the Microsoft Bot Framework has this ability to tap into Microsoft's natural language processing framework, which means that creating a bot that can understand natural human language just became super simple, right? Microsoft has this offering that they call Lewis, which allows you to send in dialogues that will actually interpret those dialogues using natural language processing and spit out what that person intends with that dialogue. So if I were to say something like, I want to reserve a room, the natural language processing could interpret that message, not look for keywords specifically as it's done in the past, but try to understand the sentiment behind what the person's asking and know that they actually want a room, or, they want to know about the amenities at a hotel, or they want to find out something on their credit report, right? It's this idea of not just, it's moved beyond keywords. It has moved to trying to understand exactly what the user is asking for, and to be able to interpret that is really the power here. Now, overall, Microsoft, in my opinion, has done a great job of creating a framework that allows you to get up and running with a new bot quickly and easily. Now, there are many other frameworks besides the Microsoft Bot framework. Google has one, Amazon has the Alexa framework, IBM has Watson. And the idea here is that even though there are multiple frameworks, everybody's kind of getting on board with the same standardization of how things are done. I started programming in the Microsoft Bot framework when I was starting to do this type of work, and I recently built something for Alexa, and I was very surprised at how easily the ideas from one were translated into another. It's like everybody got together and decided that this was the standard for this type of work, which is great for doing this type of programming, because all of those skills are naturally translatable between these different frameworks. So what are some of the advantages of utilizing bots in your business? Right? So first and foremost, bots allow you to better serve your customers, right? This is probably the lowest hanging fruit of all the different bot advantages. It's kind of what people look at first with this idea of customer service. Now, imagine a scenario where you could actually sit next to one of your clients as they browse your website, right? Imagine what this could do for your business. Being able to immediately answer any questions that they may have and directing them to relevant places on your website that you want to get noticed. Now imagine you could take that personal experience and do it for every one of your clients all day, every day, right? There's been times in my career where if I could just have sat with the client or sat with the person utilizing the technology and explained it to them and been able to answer questions right then and there based upon the context of what they were looking at, my job would have been so much easier, right? And that's kind of what the power of what bots give you. They give you this proxy to be able to do that for your clients and not actually have to be there when you're doing it, right? You're pre-programming this stuff in, but you're doing it in such a way where it's smart enough to be able to interact with your client in a very sophisticated way. So that's better service, right? Now, let's move on to ease of use. Now, do you remember a couple years ago, you kept hearing this phrase, there's an app for that? It seemed like having an app that represented your business was this like must-have commodity that everyone was clamoring for, right? At first it was websites. Everybody had to have a website. Then it was apps, right? Everybody had the app. But, what is the problem with having an app, right? Think about it. First and foremost, they're very specialized. I remember a few years ago, I was taking this flight out of Bradley, and which is an airport here in Connecticut, and I had to go visit a client, and I was flying American. Now, usually I fly Delta, right? I'm kind of this staunch Delta fan. I always fly Delta. So on my smartphone, it was all set up for flying Delta, right? I had the Delta app. I know my way around it. I had all my information entered. I knew exactly what I needed to do, like to check my bags or check, what gate my flight was leaving out of. But now I was flying American. So what did I have to do? I had to go download the American Airlines app. I had to figure out how to use it. I had to enter in all my information. And, that took like 15 minutes, right? Not a lot of time, right? I'm tech savvy. I can do this pretty quickly. But imagine someone who isn't, right? Imagine someone who, takes all this time to get started with this app. Just getting them to download it is this huge achievement. But now that they've downloaded, you got to keep their attention, right? And for me, I haven't flown American since. So what has happened to that app? It sits on my cell phone. and I don't use it. And that's kind of the story with a lot of these apps, right? They spend all this effort downloading the app, figuring it out, entering information, all for about 5 minutes of actual usage. Here's the beauty of chatbots. The beauty of chatbots are that I can get the same user experience without all that overhead because the tools I need to access that information, I've already got on my smartphone. I want each of you on this call to take a minute and think, if you have Facebook on your phone, I guarantee 99% of you do. Guess what? You can interact with a chatbot through Facebook. You don't have to download anything. And guess what even else? You know how to use it. You already know your way around the Facebook app. You know how to text back and forth. You've used SMS before. There you go. It's simple. There's nothing to figure out. There's no apps to download, right? That barrier of entry of getting people to download your app, use your app, and keep it relevant enough so that people actually keep coming back is now gone. That's a huge advantage. Now you've got people's attention. And what can you do with that attention? A ton. You can reach this broad audience with that attention. Okay? Which brings me to my last main advantage, is that bots offer this idea of reaching a broader audience. In this arena, chatbots have so much going for them. First of all, chatbots by nature are mobile. Okay? Everybody who's doing any type of programming on websites these days, it's got to be mobile. If it's not mobile, no one's using it because everyone browses their internet with their mobile phone these days. Unless you're in a profession that you're utilizing a computer, chances are when you get home, my wife, when she gets home, she browses the internet on her phone. She's got like 6 computers. I mean, me being an IT guy, I have so many computers in my house. She doesn't sit down at one of them. You know where she does the majority of her web browsing? On her phone. That's what everybody does, okay? And guess what? Chatbots, they are primed to be used on a mobile phone, okay? Facebook, SMS, Slack, all these different mediums, they're all mobile ready. Secondly, chatbots are harnessing the power of the medium for the millennial generation, right? Right now, 11% of the world's population utilize Facebook Messenger monthly. And that's just one of the many different mediums out there, right? This is what our children are using, right? Me as a 37-year-old, I use chat features quite a bit, but my daughters are going to be using them outrageously. That's how they communicate. They don't email each other. They chat with each other. So you've already got their attention. They're already using something that it's a medium that they are paying attention to, right? They're not looking at print media. They're not looking at email. They're looking at their Facebook feeds. They're looking at their SMS feeds. So you got to harness that. That's a way to reach that audience super easily. Now, these 3 things, they're just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to some of the advantage of using chatbots. These are the things that come to mind like right away. There are a ton of other reasons, and we're going to go into some of those as I progress in the slides here. So, it's time to ask that age-old question, what's in it for me? I often think about this when I walk into a client. Right? This is what the client is going to ask me. What's in it for me? Why are you presenting me this deck on X technology? Right? What do I get out of it? And rightly so. You should be asking yourselves this. Why do I, as an executive, want to invest time, money, and resources into implementing this technology? How can these tools be leveraged to help me in my business? Now, believe it or not, this slide was one of the hardest for me to put together. Why? Because there are so many applications for this technology, I had to pick and choose which ones to showcase, right? But these are some of the examples that we're currently seeing in the marketplace. This is the stuff that your competitors are doing. This is the stuff that people that are in the cutting edge are taking advantage of. First and foremost, easiest application of this technology is in the realm of customer service, right? We talked about this. Service is a super easy win when it comes to chatbots. We're already seeing a lot of these chatbots in the wild. Chatbots that can help your existing customer service representatives with some of the more repetitive requests that they are seeing, right? thus freeing them up to answer some of the more in-depth questions, right? So I'll give you a perfect example. In Connecticut and throughout many other parts of the country, because they're a pretty big company, I have Comcast as a cable provider, right? There are certain times where my cable box will go on the fritz, and I'll have to call up Comcast to have them send a signal to my box, because usually 9 times out of 10 that fixes it. So what do I got to do? I got to take out my phone. I got to dial the number. I got to go through like 16 different prompts in order to get this done. And then I got to actually get to a customer service representative. I got to give them the scenario. I got to tell them what's wrong. I'm finally said, I got so frustrated with a guy one time. I'm like, look, all I want to do is just send a signal to my box. Can you please just do this? Because I know it's going to fix it. Imagine if I had a chatbot that did that for me, right? Hi, I'm having some trouble with my cable box. Could you please send a signal to it? Yes, no problem. Here it is. Done. Right? Don't have to call anyone. Don't have to talk to anyone. Don't have to deal with any of that. It's done in, under a minute, right? I guarantee that everybody on this call, their customer service department has at least 10 things that gets asked every single day. Your customer service reps are probably sick of answering them by now, right? They're just things that people call up and ask all the time. And you're spending money as business people on paying these guys to answer these questions that could be answered by a bot. That is like a one-time fee of developing. And then guess what? You are now freeing up your customer service reps to answer stuff that is more in-depth, and you're freeing up revenue to do other things with because you're not paying them to take the time to do all this stuff. Now let's talk about those in-depth questions for a second, because not only can chatbots help in the realm of the easy questions, but they can help in the realm of in-depth questions as well. Now, have you ever had the experience where you call up customer service, you go through this whole verification process where you prove who you say you are, you give your social security number, here's my address, you describe your problem, right? You're like, here's what's going on, and then, oh, that's not my area of expertise. Let me pass you off to the person who it really is their area of expertise. And what happens when you talk to that person? Guess what? You get to re-verify who you are, you get to re-describe your problem, and go through the whole thing again. I just had to do this past weekend. I described my problem 3 times to 3 separate people before I finally got it addressed. Okay? Imagine you had a chatbot that was with you through that entire experience, that helped, that knew who you were because you've logged onto the site, right? So you have verified who you are with your login credentials, so you don't have to verify that. You've described your problem to the chatbot, and maybe the chatbot can't help you. But guess what? It can pass that information off to someone who can, and it can keep that information for if you ever have to get passed off again to a different person. So right off the bat, it's keeping a log of all the things that you have said so that you don't have to repeat yourself. I mean, this scenario blows my mind. I mean, it gets rid of all that frustration because the chatbot has this ability to kind of be your companion through this experience and to log that information and to know who you are, right? And to kind of get rid of some of that frustration for you. In this way, your chatbot stays with you throughout the whole experience, helping to document your problem and ultimately solve it. Now, besides customer service, the area of opportunity that's more up and coming is this idea of chatbots helping us with our e-commerce business, right? So some of the applications I've seen in this arena are like personal shoppers. So for example, I do the bulk of my Christmas shopping on Amazon. And one of the things that's always tough for me is to find things I think my wife and my kids would like, right? Usually what I end up doing is I'll go to the homepage, I'll check the homepage for, some things that might be, right there on the homepage and, being sold, or I'll type in one keyword and hope I get, something that I think my wife would like. And sometimes I end up with something good, but sometimes I don't. But wouldn't it be cool if I could converse with a bot like I would another person, right? Say, like I'm talking to a friend of mine. Hey, James, remember when I bought, this thing for Shannon and she really liked it? wouldn't it be great if there was something else that was like that, right? So like I'm talking to a friend of mine. I could tell it some of the things that my wife was into, and it in turn could lead me to some of the different products that she might be interested in. Now, this really serves two purposes, right? Not only does it help the consumer, in this case me, find something that we're looking for, but it could also help steer the consumer towards the items that you as a business want to sell more of, right? So chatbots are great for this. They help lead us. They help lead consumers to places that you want them to go. It's not just this like idea of pointing and clicking and hoping that, with all the flashing lights and real estate on the screen that they're going to click in the right place. And it's done in the context of a dialogue. So it doesn't seem forced, right? If I'm telling the bot about what my wife has purchased in the past, or that bot can figure that out based upon my login credentials, right? It can help suggest things for me, right? And it can do it in terms of a conversation where I could give it more to go on, oh, have you thought about this? Oh, I don't really like that. Oh, okay, well, what about this? And then kind of go from there, right? The conversation can build based on more details that you're giving it. This leads me into the last opportunity, which is brand awareness, right? Right now, think about this. How do we as a business inform people about our brand or new products from our brand? Well, there's several different ways, right? There's the old standby of print media, which maybe you send your consumers out a flyer or advertise through a magazine, right? I get these all the time from the car dealership I bought my Jeep from, right? I get this come in, we'll give you, XYZ of an oil change. But guess what? Those are super easy to throw away. In fact, I very rarely even look at them. They go right into the garbage, okay? And plus, it's kind of this idea of fishing in a large pond, right? It's this hit or miss. You cast this wide net and you hope that people pay attention, right? It's not very focused. Another method is through email, right? So email was the next stage after print media. But email is one of those things that's even easier to ignore than print media, right? So now I don't even have something tangible to throw away. I literally have a folder on my inbox called junk, which all this stuff automatically goes into. I don't even have to throw it away. It automatically goes there. So I never even get the chance to throw it away. It just happens automatically, right? So it's so easy to ignore. But think about doing this through the context of a bot, okay? Imagine that your bot sent your consumer a message through Facebook Messenger or a text message. Something super quick, just to say hey, I saw that you were browsing for pants the other day. Did you know that we're running a sale on pants this week? It's easy to consume, hard to ignore, because one of the great things about this medium is it's not saturated yet with people trying to sell us stuff, right? So we're more apt to pay attention. And because it takes so little of our time to read a one-sentence message rather than an email or a piece of, print media, that we're more apt to take a look at it really quick. And it's getting that attention that is the key for chatbots. That way you can not only make the message more personal, but you can also do it in a non-intrusive way. So it's less like an advertisement and more like a friend telling you about a cool deal. And, these are just some of the different areas where chatbots can help influence your business. There's a ton of others. So let's take a minute and take a look at some of the examples of companies that are currently using chatbots successfully. This is an example from American Express. Here we have a really great example of a customer service application with a smattering of brand awareness. So what Customer Express did here was to expose out some quick pieces of information like card usage and balances to the user, while at the same time upselling some of their affiliates' products, right? So take a look at that second screen right there. You just use your Platinum card at Delta Airlines. Hey, guess what? I've got a context of what you've just done. Let me take a minute and try to upsell you something. Traveling soon? Just as a reminder that through the lounge collection benefit of your Platinum card membership, you can enjoy, right? So what it's doing is it's taking the context of what the information it's just given you, right? So that's kind of the freebie, right? It's allowing you to access all this quick info, which in itself is great because now I don't have to sign on to American Express, or I don't have to download the app and do any of this stuff. Literally, it's just come across my Facebook feed, right? So I can get the information that I want super simply. And for that convenience, I'm giving the bot this opportunity to upsell me something, right? Just like in that third picture there where it's saying, hey, check out some of our restaurant recommendations from our friends, at these places, right? So it knows who I am. It knows what my spending habits are, and it's suggesting something, and it's doing it in such a way that's not intrusive, right? So American Express did a great job with this. They know exactly how to reel the customer in, get their attention, and keep their attention with these small amounts of upsells. So really good effort here by American Express. I was actually very impressed with their application. Here's another good example from Tommy Hilfiger. Right, they too use chatbots to help advertise their products. They even go so far as to offer in-message purchasing options, right? So one of the things that sucks about shopping on our phones is that you always get I always get into the situation where like I'm shopping on my mobile website and I filled up my cart and inevitably like something goes wrong, right? And it's just either I'm looking at the wrong page or it's not formed the right way or, something like that. Well, guess what? I can now shop for clothes right in the chatbot. I don't have to go out to the website, right? It's got this concept of a shopping cart. I can look to see what is trending right now because that's one of the things that Tommy Hilfiger has done here is they have actually catered to the millennial crowd because you see in the second screen there and the first screen, even the verbiage that they're using here is very millennial focused, right? Like, ahoy, Tommy girl here, right? Like, that's not something as a 37-year-old, like, really appeals to me personally, but it's something that they are focusing on a certain crowd because they know who their consumer is, right? They know their consumer is big Facebook users, and they want to be able to speak to them in such a way that's very hip, right? So that's one of the things that they've done here. They have tailored their chatbot to focus in on a crowd, and that's something that you can do with your business. And your one of the great things is that with Facebook Messenger and other mediums, you can actually know a lot about the person that you're interacting with. Like on Facebook, you can put your birth date in to your account. And if I'm interacting on Facebook, I as a bot know who you are, right? So I can know Matt Kruzek is a 37-year-old male. Maybe I should change the verbiage up a little. Maybe instead of saying, ahoy, Tommy girl here, I should say, hey, Matt, what's going on? You might be interested in this, right? So the bot has the power to change its message based upon some of the information and data that it's getting from you, right? So it has that ability. It has that robustness. Now here's an example of a chatbot that was built by Talon for one of our clients. The purpose of this chatbot is to furnish the customer with a free credit score. Okay, by doing this, we're able to offer the customer all types of various deals, like you can pre-qualify for auto loans or mortgage loans, or anything like that. The way that this works in Facebook, and I know I'm talking a lot about Facebook here, but like I said, there's so many chat mediums. I'm just using Facebook because it's something that is very hot right now, and a lot of people are utilizing it. But the way this would work in Facebook is this image on the left would come up in your Facebook feed like a ad, right? And you would click send message, and that would take you right into Messenger, so that you would then be able to register through the bot to be able to receive your credit score. And in this case, we are actually allowing the user to register on a secure site. So the bot takes you out to a website to register. But that's actually version 1 of this bot. Version 2 of this bot will let you register right inside the bot. So we'll actually ask you, what's your first name? What's your last name? What's your address? It will actually take that address and verify it. That address actually exists, so I don't enter something erroneous there, right? The great thing about the Microsoft Bot Framework and these other frameworks is that they give you the power to do a lot of this stuff very easily because they know you're going to need to do this verification and all of this stuff. So it's enabled this framework and it's built into the framework because they know that it's going to need to get done repeatedly. So it speaks to the power of some of the stuff that some of the good companies out there, some of the big companies had built, right? So in this case, once you fill in that secure information, it actually sends a message to the chatbot API indicating the customer's done entering the information, and then the chatbot will pull the score. In this case, we're pulling it directly from the credit bureau. So the chatbot can talk to that API behind the scenes and then deliver you that information. So it's a very robust system. So speaking of other mediums, I wanted to showcase at least one other because we talked about Facebook so much. This last example is a proof of concept chatbot that Talon worked on for Experian, which if you don't know, Experian is one of the 3 credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. So I'm showing this one because it's embedded right in the customer's website rather than a medium like Facebook Messenger. In this example, the user is asking the bot about more information about the credit score. Now, because the bot has the ability to gather information about the user, they know they're currently signed up for the free version of the credit report. So the bot actually utilizes this opportunity to initiate an upsell from within the conversation to help the user to get more information about their credit, right? It knows who the person is, and it has information about the person. And it utilizes that in the context of the conversation to smoothly transition into an upsell. Right? It's not an ad plastered somewhere, right? It's not something that can be easily ignored like an email, right? It's happening directly in the conversation. It was actually the result of something that the consumer asked for, right? This idea of the fact they want to get more information about their credit report. This tactic is much more natural than placing an ad in the sidebar or the footer. Right? It happens within the context of the conversation, and it has a real natural flow to it. And this is really important because this is a real power that chatbots have. It puts it into a context that is not right up there in your face. It happens very, very subtly. So one of the things that I want you to keep in mind is that chatbots are just the beginning. The great thing about this technology becoming more mainstream is that because it starts to seep into some of the other technologies. Now, in this case, I'm talking about Alexa and Siri, which are 2 voice-activated chat mediums that have been growing more and more in popularity over the last few years, right? So, Siri came on the scene a couple years ago. It was kind of this, almost this cool little toy to play with, right? It was this, I could ask it for, who won the football game last night, but it wasn't anything that I could get a lot of real value out. But again, we talk about this progression of the technology. Now, with stuff like Amazon, I can order, I order diapers through my Amazon Echo, right? I just had a child born in December, and I order new diapers through my Echo. I don't have to sign on. I don't have to, put my information in. I literally say, Alexa, I would like to order more diapers. And boom, more diapers come to my door. I mean, how cool is that, right? I just purchased something through Amazon with one command. And stuff like that is becoming more and more predominant in the marketplace. You are harnessing the power of this medium in order to get your message out there. And it's not just something that is a novelty anymore, right? Like people have Alexas in their homes. They have Siri on their phones. They have Cortana on their computers, right? It's all over the place. So it can be harnessed, and it's out there. And it offers a lot of power that is just waiting to be utilized by your business in order to help people communicate with you a little bit better. So hopefully by now, I have convinced you that this technology is something that you would want to invest in. But maybe you don't know exactly where you should begin, right? Maybe you're convinced that, hey, this is a cool idea, but where do I start, right? I know that, okay, customer service, but what does that mean? How do I get going with that? Well, one of the things that we do at Talon is to guide our clients through this experience, right? We work with you and work with your business to try to figure out the answers to those questions, right? We do this by asking very specific questions about your business to help and find the sweet spots, right? For example, one of the easiest avenues of approach is to look at your existing website. Are there certain areas of your website that are high value, low traffic areas, right? Are there some pages that, you've put really great content on, but you don't know that people are going to, or that, people are not being funneled to? Well, like I demonstrated earlier, one of the things that bots are great at is guiding your customers towards things that you want them to notice, right? You can guide your customer to that page, Let's get them to look at that product. Let's get them to buy that service, right? Through the course of the conversation. Another piece of low-hanging fruit is identifying which pieces of quick data points can be exposed to make your chatbot that much more enticing. Right? We talked about this with the American Express, right? This is like the first thing that I ask people when I walk in the room. I'm like, people love chatbots. How do we get them to use your chatbot? What can we expose out that's super quick, right? That is just a quick piece of information they're going to want to know. What's my credit score? There you go. That's a quick piece of information that I can get. That will get me more interested in my credit. That will get me to buy your offer, to get my credit report, to get alerts on my credit, to find out what are the factors that are affecting my credit. Just that one piece of information, right? What are the key pieces that we can start with to get people engaged? Because once you've got them engaged, that's the key. Now you can start to push your message. Now you can start to pinpoint the demographic for your business, right? You can start to send them news and send them alerts and get them interested, right? You've got their attention. Now you can start to sell them, right? These types of things are easy ways to get people using your bots so you can start to harness that attention and leverage it for future sales opportunities. All in all, we at Talon believe this technology is going to go quickly from a nice to have to a must have in the near future, right? It's something that you're not going to want to get left behind on. It's something that you're going to want to invest in now, and now is really the time. The technology is there. We are seeing the proof in the pudding in the marketplace. There are some great bots out there. There is some stuff that is generating a lot of buzz, right? I mean, I guarantee that if you stay up to date with technology news, every time I read technology news, at least one article in 10 is about chatbots, about how this is the technology that you're going to want to jump upon. This is the technology that people are using these days to help to sell their message, to help to cut the costs down on customer service, to help get their information out there in the marketplace. One of the things that we didn't talk about that is really important in this medium and that Talon places a lot of focus on is this idea of analytics, right? Chatbots are great for analytics, okay? So I want to know what my customers are asking my bot. What are the important questions that are getting asked? Am I going down the paths I think that I should be going down, right? Let's say that I have 3 or 4 different specific things that chatbot answers. Only 3 of them are being utilized. Why aren't people utilizing that 4th one? Analytics are always first in our mind when we go and do these types of engagements, because the way that we look at it is we sit down with you as a client. We want to help you ideate. Right? We want to help you to figure out what is the problem that you are trying to solve. Am I trying to cut my costs down on customer service? Am I trying to better inform my audience? Am I trying to get people's attention? You are? Great. Let's keep that in mind as we go through the process, because at the end, when we look at the data, when we look at all the analysis, I want to be able to prove to you that we did our jobs, that we accomplished that goal for you. And if for some reason we didn't, how can we make a change to make sure that on the next ideation we do? And that's the only way that you can do it, is to get those analytics and to be able to process it. And for us as a company, Talon, as consultants, to be able to deliver that to you and to deliver that message and say, hey, guess what? We accomplished our goals. What's the next one that we want to tackle, right? We drove your customer engagement up by X percentage, right? We were able to sell more of Y product, right? We did that. And we did that through analytics. So I want to make sure that I mention the analytical part because it's something that often gets glossed over when doing these types of projects because people get so jazzed about the technology, they forget to be able to prove it at the end that it actually worked, right? They're like, hey, great, we put this new technology in, and then, you're up against your board and the board says, well, how do we prove that, our investment was fruitful? And, we at Talon, we want to help you to prove that, right? We want to help you to say, hey, this was worth it. This was worth our investment. So I want to take a brief minute and to show you guys where to get started. For us, we have a page that is dedicated to chatbots. It's under custom technology on our main page under cognitive services. So under cognitive services, we actually have two different proof of concepts that we introduce to our clients. One is this idea of customer service, right? So these are things that, let's say that you've sat through this seminar, you say, hey, Matt, that's pretty cool. I want to get started, but I don't know that I want to make this huge investment right off the bat. I kind of want to see it working, right? I want to play with it. I want to be able to touch it and feel it and type some commands to it and see it working, right? I remember that I did this presentation for a client. I did two presentations, actually, one without a demo and one with a demo. And the one with a demo, I actually brought in an Alexa, an Amazon Echo. I put it in the middle of the table, and I fired off some commands at it. And let me tell you, that one thing, that drove more ideas than the 15-slide deck that I put up on the projector, right? This idea to interact with a chatbot that is giving you answers about your particular business, right? And to see it in action, right? So we really believe that that's a way to kind of dip your toe into the market, right? This idea of a proof of concept, this idea that you could see these things working in real life. So like I said, we offer these two POC types, one being customer service. We're going to let you choose a channel. Let's say you choose Facebook Messenger. Let's say you choose Alexa. Let's say you choose SMS. Give us your top 10 customer service inquiries. Tell us the 10 things that people call into customer service about. And we will create responses to those questions. And you can see the bot in action. You can see the natural language processing in action, right? So a lot of people, that's really the key. I in that particular meeting I was talking about, I actually had people trying to break the bot, right? They were sitting there throwing different variations of the command at it to see how smart it was. And it was cool because it was actually picking up on it and like being able to answer them and being able to interpret what they were saying through the natural language processing thing. And you kind of see the power of that as in real life, right? In real time. And that's one of the things that makes it so cool. You can actually see it in action. The other thing is this idea of a frequently asked questions bot, right? So this is a no-brainer, right? Even more of a no-brainer than customer service, right? You have a website, guess what? I guarantee you got frequently asked questions, okay? I'm sure you have a frequently asked questions page. How many people utilize your frequently asked questions page? Or they utilize maybe like one question out of like the 10 you have there or the 100 that you have there. I've worked with several companies that they have tons and tons and tons of content. I mean, they literally have books full of content that they want people to read, right? You want them to read this because in reading this, they know more about you as a company. And if they know more about you as a company, they're more off to buy your product or they're more off to utilize you, right? So you want to inform them. A good consumer is an informed consumer, right? This is a way to inform them in a cool way and to get them interacting rather than just going to a website and clicking around or utilizing the ubiquitous search bar at the top where, you either get like the Google result equivalent of everything, right? If you've ever used like search boxes on a website, you kind of get this, I call it the Google result where I get back everything under the sun, none of which seem to be anything that I was actually asking for, or I get back zero results, right? So you either get like, it's feast or famine, right? But with this idea of chatbots, it can help to analyze what it is that you're asking it, and it can give you back an intelligent response, right? You can help to funnel people towards the things that you want them to look at, right? So this is just a natural progression of the technology. So we offer those two POCs. They are by no means the only POCs we offer. We would love to work with you guys to figure out something else that we might be able to build for you to help convince you that this is the right thing for you to invest in. And, the sky's the limit, right? We're just trying to give you a stepping stone. I have found when introducing new technologies, it's often the how do I get started that is the toughest part. Once you get started, the ideas flow from there, right? Once I had that Alexa bot on the table and I had like 5 questions that I could answer, people were like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if it could answer this? Or wouldn't it be great if it could tell you about that? I mean, I had a notebook full of ideas at the end of the session because people just start. Once it's there, once the ball's rolling, the ideas come. And that's our job, right? More than building the software, right? Because anybody can build the software, right? Our job at Talon is to help you to get those ideas flowing. It's to know and be able to interact with your business to take the technology and apply it there. And that's what we do, right? That's how we help you. It's not just building the technology. Like I said, anybody can build the technology. We are a partner. We help you to invest in the technology. We help you to figure out the best way to apply it and then come up with the analytics to prove that it works, right? To prove that your investment was a good investment. So I would like to open the floor up for questions. If anybody has any questions, I'd love to hear them. If not, there's my contact information. I would love to hear from you. Please come and just have a conversation with me. I would love to spitball some ideas and whiteboard some ideas with you. I'm sure we could come up with some really cool concepts and applications of this technology. And I thank you all for taking the time out to come to this webinar and to invest your time. And I hope it's been very fruitful for you. Thank you.